Okay. Where would you like me to start this?
Yeah, put them in you. Session 2.
See, it's just taking a while. Taking too long. One second. The disk is just a little scratched on maybe. Can we?
Say there's two of the same.
Can we try the other disk? I think this disk is just taking, it's just really holding up. Can we try the same disk, the other one that you have?
You want the other one?
Yeah. This,
Oh, okay.
this is just taking too long. Thank you.
It's a disc too, right? Is it disc on?
This is still just-
That's the leadership one, the one on the right, so that's the one that's like his.
Yep.
That's the duplicate one.
It's a little bit scratched up, but I don't know. I don't know what it is. Should be good.
What's wrong with the other one?
It was just taking too long to load. I don't know if it was a physical thing, but it was just going in circles. Let me see.
Yeah, guys, after you think about all that we processed in session 1, that mentions in a state of confusion, it really leaves you kind of thrown off.
Yeah.
Because you got so many issues.
I don't know about you guys. First time I heard that, I thought, oh, that's not me. You know, it's not my fault.
And that's key. I mean, it's key. Once you begin to identify where you are as a man, now you have to begin to find what kind of training do I need to move out of my current state to a higher level.
Yeah, we're also going to talk about the power that we need to fuel our journey.
Yeah, yeah, just the going back to Genesis 1 and 2 and really looking at God's original design and mandate and that whole create and cultivate idea, I think is just really helpful for guys. I know it was for me.
Yeah, well, that's what you're going to talk about today. But before we get into that, there's something really important. Every man on the journey with us needs the 33 training guide, because in that guide, you'll find some supplemental information, some content we're not able to cover in the sessions. And you'll also find some questions to help you process the information, process what you're learning. Hopefully you'll get together with a teammate or teammates to hold you accountable to that. And also in each session, you'll see
Training guide that he's talking about is this. I give you
of
copies
each
of that.
session, and we're going to challenge you to personalize it and to write down at least one strategic move that you're going to make, because we're going to build
If you want me to purchase some, I will.
to help us move where we are
Number was
to where God created us to be.
Yeah, and one of the things I love about that idea of writing down a 33 strategic move and a 33 action plan and really creating that is it really helps guys move from just information and education into really transformation. And when a guy owns it and personalizes it in that way, it really kind of helps us move toward that
Yeah,
transformation.
you said something the other day. Something David Smith said, it's only a dream until what?
It's written out. I heard David Smith say one time that a dream remains a dream until you write it down, then it becomes a goal. And I really was like, man, there's a lot of truth to that.
And that's the reality of it, that men were about action. I mean, the whole reality of a man's life, he has to be moving somewhere. And we're moving up, we're moving down, but this action plan will help move us to that new place. And I'm excited about that. That's why this section 2, create and cultivate, is going to be so critical, because it moves us from the problem to now the solution. Let's get into it, guys.
You're up, man. All right, let's do it.
In the last session, we laid the groundwork for our journey toward authentic manhood. We took a sobering look at our current manhood crisis and the historical realities that have led to the massive manhood confusion that we're experiencing today. Those realities should be a startling wake-up call for all of us. Men were created for a noble purpose. Our Creator has given men a mission here on earth. It's in His original design, His original blueprints for man. It's what God intended when He created man. That's what we want to talk about today. We want to bring clarity to our confusion about manhood. Thankfully, God is not silent on the issue of masculinity. Now, we need to go back, way back to the very beginning, to the book of Genesis. By the way, that's what Genesis means. It's the book of beginnings. I think it's a smart move for us to see how things were meant to be in their original design. In the first 2 chapters, we see a world as it was intended to be. And this is important. We see God model something. In the very first book of the Bible, it says that God looked down into the chaos of nothingness and He did something. He initiated, He acted, He created. The first thing we see God do is model leadership. And He does it through 2 specific actions. First, we see God create. Then we see God cultivate. In Genesis 1, God creates and cultivates. And into existence comes galaxies and the planets and earth and plants and animals and mankind. He spoke them into existence. And then He surrounded His creation with nurturing environments for it to grow and mature. God creates, and then He cultivates what He created. You then move into Genesis 2, and it reminds us of all God created. And it goes into detail about how He cultivated His creation with things like streams that come up and water the surface of the ground. God provided trees that were pleasing to look at, as well as a good source of food. Now, that begs the question. That's good for God, but what does that have to do with me? I think it's important for us to see how God created us in the first place. In Genesis 1:27, it says a very profound thing. It says, so God created man in His own image. In the image of God, He created him. Right there in the first book of the Bible, God clarifies for us that He intended man to be like Him. We know what that looks like because God modeled it for us. To be like Him means we will be men who lead. And the way we lead is to create and to cultivate. To drive home that point, Genesis 1:28 says another very profound thing. It In it, God speaks to man and he says this: be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea and the birds of the heavens and over every living thing that moves on the earth. To subdue it means to bring it under control. In other words, God wants man to assume responsibility, to really own it. God has given man a mandate to create and cultivate. It's what God himself modeled. He created man not only to bring things into existence, whether that's a marriage or children, a business, a ministry, but also to develop and nurture, to cultivate whatever it is that he creates. To say this another way, God created men to be social and spiritual leaders. Like God, men are designed to initiate, to create, then to follow through on what they started, to cultivate. So if you create a family, then foster an environment that allows your wife and your children to thrive. If you start a career, then follow through and cultivate your talents. Bring your skill sets to bear in the marketplace. These are the tracks that God has laid for us to travel in our manhood journey. Now, what happens when men ignore this mandate? What happens when men don't lead? When men don't accept this responsibility to create and cultivate? You are guaranteed chaos. For example, think about the disorder and the confusion that occurs in a home when a father abandons his responsibility to raise his kids. Statistically, children growing up in a father-absent home are far more likely to die in infancy, live in poverty, end up in prison, use drugs, be abused, drop out of school. Clearly, the presence or absence of a father has an enormous impact on a child's life. And when men fail to embrace their God-given responsibility, when they fail to fight a noble fight like fatherhood, what follows is chaos and pain for those left in its wake. God did not intend for men to create chaos. God intended for men to create and cultivate, to solve problems, not create problems. Now, you don't have to be a take-charge guy with a type A personality to create and cultivate. Masculinity is not about being a natural-born leader. It's about courage. And any man who's willing to step up and initiate and be courageous can lead in these areas. Unfortunately, the first man, Adam, failed miserably in these areas. He did not show the courage to lead Eve in the midst of her temptation. Adam blew it. In Genesis 3, we see that Satan comes along and tempts Eve with the fruit from the tree that God had told them not to eat. He appeals to her senses. He questions the will that God had given them and suggests that God is somehow holding out on them. In Genesis 3:6, it says that Eve saw that the tree was good for food and that it was a delight to her eyes. She took of its fruit and ate. And she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate. Now, we're going to address this more in the next session, but notice that Adam was right there with his wife. He wasn't somewhere else in the garden. Instead, he was passively standing while his wife was tempted. Adam and Eve chose the fruit over obedience to God. It was pleasing to their senses. Now, this is important. There are two misses that can happen when it comes to experiencing God's best for our life. The first miss is when we decide that true happiness is found outside of God or away from God or around God. We buy into the lie that says ultimate fulfillment in life is found in money or power or sex or recognition. That somehow God must be holding out on me. And if I were to start following God's will, his will for my life, that would be dull and boring. The fruit is pleasing to our senses and becomes a replacement for God who created us. Let's call this miss or this choice the way of the fruit. It's the choice that Adam and Eve made when they chose the fruit their own way over God's will. Genesis 3:7 reveals the second miss to experiencing what God intended for us. You see, once Adam and Eve realized they had sinned, it not only disrupted their relationship with God, but also their relationship with each other. For the first time, they were aware of their nakedness, so they covered themselves with fig leaves. They know that they've messed up, that they've disobeyed God's will, and experienced the separation that's caused by sin. Now, instead of turning to God to fix the mess they created, they attempted to cover their sin, cover themselves. Let's call this mess the way of the fig leaves. They tried to fix it themselves. Now, here's how this plays out today. On one hand, those who choose the way of the fruit are the people who follow any path that appeals to their senses. These substitutes seem harmless in the beginning, but they lead to a path that is self-destructive. Some are self-medicating. All of them are self-deceptive because they promise a fulfilling life, but they can't deliver. They always overpromise and underdeliver. They all reject God, His will, His way, His best. On the other hand, those who choose the way of the fig leaves are the people who try to cover themselves with good behavior, try to perform their way into God's favor. They don't know it, but they are also rejecting God's will. They think they can make themselves acceptable to God, but God is perfect, and His laws have been violated. Our best behavior, even our best religious self-effort, are no more impressive than mere fig leaves. The author of the Old Testament book, Isaiah, really nailed this truth when he said, all of our righteous deeds are like filthy rags. Both of these choices, the way of the fruit and the way of the fig leaves, cause us to miss the mark of God's intended purpose and His best for our life. God could have taken one look at Adam and Eve and the choices that they had made and said, that's it, I'm done. You're on your own. Good luck with those fig leaves. But He didn't. Watch what He does instead. It's an incredible act of grace. He takes the initiative to care for Adam and Eve, despite their sin. Genesis 3:21 says, and the Lord God made for Adam and for his wife garments of skin, and He clothed them. The grace that God offered Adam and Eve in that moment is a preview of the grace that He would offer to us thousands of years later through the sacrifice of His Son, Jesus Christ. Now let me stop right here and say something to those of you who may have gotten a distorted picture of Jesus from your past or maybe from some religious experience. We promise you this. If you'll hang with us as we dive in to explore authentic manhood, you'll see that Jesus not only models an inspiring masculinity, but He also enables us to live it ourselves. And I'd be willing to bet that many of you watching this probably never fully understood who Jesus really is. He's not the blue-eyed, blonde-haired, sweet Jesus depicted in so many paintings. He's a man's man in every sense of that phrase. He stared down Satan in the desert for 40 days. He sweated blood. He took nails in His hands, and yet He cared for His mom and rallied men. And His leadership and ultimately His murder and defeat of death sparked a movement that changed mankind more than any other life or movement in the history of the world. Just like Adam and Eve, we are all sinners. That doesn't mean that you and I are necessarily as bad as we could possibly be. Compared to some people, but we might actually look pretty good. But God doesn't compare one man with another man. He compares all of mankind to Himself, and we all come up woefully short. Like Adam, we have all, in one way or another, chosen our own selfish desires over His, and therefore destroyed our relationship with Him. The bad news is our sin and our self-righteousness is an offense to a perfect and holy God. But here's the good news. Just as God showed grace to Adam and Eve, He's also offered grace to us. Romans 5:8 says God shows His love for us that while we're yet still sinners, Christ Jesus died for us. If we place our trust in Jesus, we can receive His forgiveness and His righteousness. Romans 3:22 says that righteousness from God comes through faith in Jesus Christ to all who believe. 1 Timothy 2:5 makes it clear that because of our sin, Jesus is our only hope for righteousness. It says there is one mediator between God and man, the man, Christ Jesus. So God has offered a provision for our sin. To experience that provision, we must place our trust in Him. Only by placing our trust in Jesus Christ can we have salvation and peace with God, as well as the power that fuels the authentic manhood that we're talking about. I think the best question to ask right now is, what are you trusting in? Maybe you're looking for satisfaction in cars, relationships, promotions, degrees, the latest gadgets. That's what people do when they've chosen their own will, the way of the fruit. Maybe you're trying to impress God and others with your religious accomplishment, which is the way of the fig leaves. But how do you know if you've been religious enough or good enough? All that religion and all those good deeds can start to feel a little thin when you think about standing before a perfect and holy God, like you're wearing nothing but a fig leaf. You simply cannot find salvation and peace with God, much less pursue authentic manhood apart from a relationship with Jesus Christ. He's not only our model, He's our Savior. If you're not confident that you have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, we want to encourage you to check out the video on our website. It'll tell you more about that and guide you through this important process. It's the most important decision you could possibly make, and you can never hope to pursue authentic manhood apart from it. Now, we've been discussing how Adam and Eve missed God's best for their lives and how every human being, man or woman, will either run from God or accept God's provision in Jesus. What we want to do now is look at how we as men can miss and pervert God's intention for our masculinity. As you'll see, the same misses of Adam and Eve, fruit and fig leaves, show up in the misses of manhood. For example, men who choose the way of the fruit become childish consumers. Unfortunately, due to silent and absent fathers, silent pulpits, silent mentors, most men today have their perspective of manhood shaped and defined by modern media. Marketing and advertising agencies have declared that being a man is defined not by what you produce, but by what you consume. They get paid to sell illusions of masculinity to men. Marketers encourage men to be lazy consumers. They advertise cars and clothes and body sprays and other products with an underlying message that these are the things that define your manhood. So you buy into those things in order to declare yourself a man. And men respond by trying to find their total fulfillment through temporary possessions and cheap thrills. We call these guys boys because they act like children in their pursuits, children in their definition of success, children who only think about satisfying themselves and what makes sense to them. These are guys who turn exclusively to fun and vanity and things, hoping to find relief, joy, happiness, escape, and purpose. Take a look at this scene. A lighthearted take on what's a big issue for many men.
What are you doing?
Totally dominating. That's what I'm doing.
No, I mean, why aren't you dressed and ready to go?
Baby, I'm like a fire tonight.
Tim, this may be the single most important night of my life. I've worked years for this award.
Headshot! Boom! Go around the back of the building and take out the sentry gun. Honey, we have never made it to this level before.
This is a stupid game.
That just screams that you don't understand me.
You're right. I don't understand how a grown man could willingly waste hours of his life on a boy's video game.
I will have you know that this is a very manly pastime. What are you trying to do? Steal my manhood? Huh? Wait. Are you trying to neuter me? Is that what this is? Some kind of a secret ploy to dominate this home? Well, I won't stand for it.
It's a ploy to make you less of a man.
But this is how I express my individuality.
Oh yeah, with the game that sold millions of copies?
How many people do you know with the gamer tag T-Rot T-Dog?
Fortunately, I don't know morons.
And to think I was going to give you sex tonight.
Oh, that's it. I'm leaving. You play your meaningless, stupid video game until your heart's content. I'm going. I'm doing this alone.
Hey! If you come back with a better attitude, I may reconsider the sex thing. Hey, Ben, I'm back. Oh, man! You just got me killed!
Pause it right there for a minute. What are several things that you've seen in that scene as soon as she walked in the door, or in the room? As soon as she came in, what are some things you noticed right off the bat?
That he wasn't ready.
Huh?
He wasn't ready.
He wasn't ready. Okay, what else?
It's in his underpants. In his underpants.
Okay, all right. And what else?
His trunk is like a little messy in there, like it's a little bit of stuff going over the place.
Okay. Who was more engaging on the fight just now?
Oh, he was.
In what respect?
And that the game is more important than what she
The
had
game was more important. So what was important to him was not important
to her.
to her, and what was important to her wasn't important to him because she already said she has been waiting on this how long? Years. So even what she was doing prior to coming into the room, he never ever thought was important. But you notice the volume that she came in the room with? She was just about ready. He was still in there playing around. So that's what he did with his pastime. So he never took her serious. So the fight just got elevated to the point where she shut it off and said, I'm what?
Going by myself.
I'm going. Did that matter to him?
No.
So that only means one thing. In their debate and fighting, he never ever took her important. Therefore, she always walked out. How long do you think that's gonna last? When you can't communicate to someone who you just feel whatever it is that they're doing is not important to you in a relationship, you're just not gonna bother. You're just gonna retreat to a room somewhere, grab something, a hobby or whatever it is, and you're not gonna pay her no mind. And then you do exactly what most men do when they find out that their wife is mad. Let's kiss and hug, thinking that that's gonna make everything right. Guys do that in relationship all the time. Oh, I'm sorry. They get real close. Oh, honey, I'm sorry. You right. Blah, blah, blah. After about 4 or 5 seconds of that, the wife drops her shoulders. She calms down, and then that's it. Then the physical started, and he's done. He won that battle. See, that's the way things are. Men always know how to de-escalate when they get in trouble by smooth talking. And they get to a point, some women get to the point where they say, hey, look, I'm out of here. What do you think is going to happen when she get to the party, she get to the event, and some other guy tell her how nice she look?
She wants to say thank you, and they're going to start conversation.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, yeah. Why? Because hubby don't pay her no mind. Hubby haven't paid her any mind for years. Now that she's getting an award and stuff for this accomplishment, it's still no big deal to him. So he act like Adam. He opened up his wife to trouble.
Yeah, that's why I always say, like I told Ron, I said, what I won't do for you, somebody else will. So that's why I try to.
That's right. That's right.
Once you can, it's good.
Yeah. What is one man's loss is another man's gain. And what is old to you is new to someone else. So, just think about it. That right scene right there in a relationship has taken a long time to fester. And the volume itself lets you know, as a therapist, both of these people are in serious trouble because they haven't been listening to one another for years. Once you start arguing in a relationship, the tone of the relationship changes, the meaning of the relationship changes too. And both of you go away separate with two different things thinking about. And most women harbor their importance and lack of. Once a man stops of making his girlfriend or his wife feel important, she dismissed. And everything after that becomes a fight. Everything after that becomes, you shouldn't have did this or you're not doing that. It becomes nitpicking relationship. Why are you late? Why did you have to bring somebody with you? Why can't we have some quality time? Why we always got to go where you want to go? That's when it starts. That's when the relationship then is in serious trouble. Most guys are very dismissive. We get to the point where we can do just like Adam. We can hear and not hear our surroundings. And we can say, okay, it is what it is. Adam said that about Eve. It is what it is. And he didn't even consciously think about what she was doing because what she was doing didn't matter to him because he was Adam. He didn't realize that she got both of them in trouble. Because God told him, he told his wife, there is no biblical proof that God said anything to Eve. Eve reiterated what Adam told her. And Adam told her some extra stuff. If we had no business over there by the tree, why were we over there by the tree? If that was so important to God. Okay, let's go to the next one.
Now, of course, every man needs to have some fun and enjoy some guy time. That's not what we're talking about. I enjoy that more than most. These are men who stay there. You see it in excessive hobbies, such as being totally obsessed with hunting or golf or dominating some softball league. These are the guys who camp out all night to buy a video game and then play it for 40 straight hours until they beat it. They're almost exclusively focused on what they can get and on pleasing their desires with whatever is available, whether it's porn, food, gadgets, movies, sports, childish consumers. God did not create men to merely be consumers. Boys consume and take. God designed men to create, to add value, to give, to produce. Jesus lived this. In 1 Corinthians 15:45, The Apostle Paul describes Jesus as a life-giving spirit. I love that description of Jesus. Wherever he went, Jesus infused life into people. He modeled authentic manhood by living his life to bless others, to encourage others, to build them up, and to give his life for their benefit. His authentic manhood was famous for a life-giving energy and an others-centered focus. Authentic men followed Jesus' lead by living with the purpose of blessing and encouraging others. They believed they were put on this earth to do more than just eat, sleep, make money, play, retire, and die. Now, we also see some men miss the mark by settling in with the religious or the fig leaf crowd. This is an equally bad miss when it comes to God's intended purpose for masculinity. We call these guys cowards and critics. Let's take a lighthearted look at an example of a coward and a critic.
You like this job?
It keeps the light on.
I hate it. I mean, maybe it's a company that bothers you.
Maybe it's just work in general.
You know, how many mistakes I see management make around here every single day? A ton.
Like what?
Like holding me down, that's what. That's some strong leadership around here.
Maybe they threaten like.
Yeah, exactly. You see it too, right? Management holding me down. I tell you, if I was running this company, there'd be a lot of changes around here. Rule number one, bring the awesomeness.
Why don't you try implementing some of these changes?
No, I'm a visionary by nature. I'm an idea kind of guy. I'm a thinker. I'm a doer.
I can definitely see that.
It's like when I tell my ex-boss, when I would knock off early, I tell him, pay me for my expertise, not my time.
Keyword, ex-boss.
Yeah, that guy didn't get it either.
You ever thought about leaving and starting your own business?
Yeah, I thought about it.
You have my support.
I don't want to just tie myself down to just one idea, you know.
Yeah, you want to avoid that type of solid decision making.
No doubt. You want to do it? The truth is, money's not that important to me. I mean, I'm comfortable, and it looks like my living expenses will be going down soon anyways.
Oh, yeah? You downsizing?
Kind of. I keep telling my girlfriend, I say, you can pay half the bills, then I marry you.
What a lucky gal.
Well, I can't stand to sit here and watch you do such a mediocre job. Remember, bring the awesomeness.
Cowards and critics are guys who are condescending to those who don't adhere to their moral checklist. They define themselves often by what they don't do. They take pride in the fact that they don't get drunk, don't do drugs, or watch questionable movies. These are the kinds of guys who have destroyed the credibility of many churches, because underneath, many of them are really cowards and critics. And often these guys are quick to criticize others, but are unwilling to be courageous themselves. They're too scared to make a decision, but they love criticizing those who do. According to one pastor, some of these guys are the same ones who are afraid to declare a major in college. They're reluctant to embrace a purpose for their life. They hesitate to declare a theology. They won't take any initiative, nor are they decisive. Some of these guys won't even pursue a meaningful relationship with a woman because of their fear of rejection. This type of guy would rather criticize than create. They don't have visions, they have anti-visions. They criticize the men who are attempting to be courageous. They criticize the men taking risk. They find the minor flaw in everyone and everything. Yet they themselves aren't courageous enough to take initiative with their own lives. So you can now see that a misunderstanding of authentic manhood has caused many guys to become either childish consumers who look to find their happiness exclusively in the pleasures of this world, or cowards and critics, the self-righteous boys who criticize others but lack courage themselves. Without a clear understanding of and commitment to authentic manhood, we will all be tempted to be childish consumers or self-righteous critics. Just as we must intentionally reject the misses of the fruit and the fig leaves as they relate to God's provision for our sin, we must also reject those misunderstandings of what it means to be an authentic man. So how should you and I respond to God's mandate on our lives as men to embrace authentic manhood? First, we must believe that God has made a provision for our sin. Through placing our faith in Jesus, we can have salvation and embrace true masculinity. Once we have trusted Christ for our right standing before God, as men, we must then embrace God's mandate on us to create and cultivate. And we should feel the burden of this mandate most in our relationship with God, in our professional vocation, and in our relationship with our wife and family. We've dedicated other sessions in this 33 series to help you grow in those areas. But you can begin today to follow and live out this create and cultivate mandate. Instead of just going through the motions at work, you can breathe life into your work by making strategic adjustments where you are, or you can find the courage maybe to make a bold move or take a big risk. That'll put you way more in sync with the way that God's wired you. In your marriage, you can initiate dates with your wife and cultivate your relationship. You can be creative and give her something to anticipate. You can provide spiritual direction to your children, intentionally pouring into them and leading by example. To do that, you'll need to cultivate your own relationship with God and dig a little deeper so your family doesn't just see a good guy who works hard and provides. They get to experience a growing and powerful, authentic man who's passionate about following God's will to lead. Next session, we're going to look more closely at how Jesus embraced this mandate. We are going to discover the specific actions he took in his manhood journey and talk about what that looks like for us today. This session was the big picture of God's original design for your life as a man to create and cultivate. Next session, you and I will receive a clear, compelling, biblical definition of what it means to be a man. We'll see you next session.
In the South, college football is a sacred tradition. John Croyle experienced that tradition firsthand as an All-American defensive end at the University of Alabama, a key performer on legendary Coach Bear Bryant's 1973 national championship team.
In high school, I made All-American in football and basketball. And Coach Bryant and other coaches would come to the house and we'd visit and talk and everything, but I had no idea where I wanted to go. But I remember meeting him when I was 15. And he just had this gift of finding already motivated people and steering on the way he wanted them to go.
John had the talent and opportunity to play professionally, but an off-the-field experience permanently changed the course of his life.
I was 19 years old and I was playing at Alabama, and it was the summer. And I was working at this camp in Mississippi. And I was just an old counselor in one of the cabins. And I met a little boy from the streets of Orange whose mother was a prostitute, and he was the banker and the timekeeper for his mom. He would literally knock on the door and say, "Mama, I got the money, here's a receipt." And the man would go and be with his mom. And I told the little boy how to become a Christian. He came back the following year and told me word for word what I shared with him summers before. I realized I'd been given a gift.
Not sure what to do next, John visited with his coach to discuss the future.
I wanted to go play with the best in the world. And I went to see Coach Bryant, and I said, "Coach Bryant, I want to get the money for pro football. I want to start this home for kids." I had been telling him about this ranch from the time I was 19 years old. He just looked at me, and typical of him, he said, "Don't play pro football unless you're willing to marry it. Go build that ranch and we talked about it." That's it. I walked out and never looked back.
So John exchanged one dream for a new one, the Big Oak Ranch. Since 1974, John and his wife T have cultivated a loving, nurturing environment for children needing a chance.
We have eight houses that have kids in them, living in them right now, and there's a couple in each house. We call them houseberry for mom and pop.
There's our high school boys in junior high and high school. We brag on them on Friday nights, and we got JV games on Tuesday nights, and I better be there. And they'll literally come get water, and they'll take the thing and they'll squirt water. And I see them look in the stands, and they'll give me a little heads up because they know I'm there. You gotta be. That's what dads do.
Your parents or your family can't provide the things you need. The ranch is there for you, and they'll teach you how to become a man, and we'll take care of you going up into adulthood.
Every child that's ever lived here with us, including the 5-year-old last week to the very first one, they've all heard the same 4 promises. I love you. I will never lie to you. I'll stick with you till you're grown. And there's boundaries, don't cross them. As parents, as fathers, if we give our children emotional support, truth, security, and discipline, we'll raise a thoroughbred every time.
Big Oak Ranch sits on 143 breathtaking acres, a haven for animals, games, and fishing. A child's utopia. Only most of these kids traveled through hell to get here.
Had one boy dipped in hot grease and waist down and burned. I met a little girl that was raped by her father while her mother held her down. I met a little girl, 18 months old. Her daddy brought in friends, and 5 men raped this 18-month-old little baby. I have seen the depravity of what adults can do to children.
If you're just a kid and someone says, we built this for you, you can never achieve anything until you believe in yourself. So we have to start at the ground level. You're not a piece of garbage. You're not somebody's leftover human that they got tired of. You are a creature that God created, and He has a future, and hope, and a plan for you.
Over the years, more than 1,900 children ages 5 to 18, many abused, neglected, or abandoned, have been dropped at the doorstep of Big Oak Ranch. Each year, more than 100 kids live at the ranch, with dozens more graduating high school and leaving for college.
He's a junior at UAB. That boy went to the Navy this past year.
We've learned a truth. Rules without relationship equals rebellion. Sometimes what we do is we focus on the rebellion, we focus on the rules instead of focusing on the relationship. So what we've done for many years is every Tuesday morning at 7 o'clock, I have breakfast with all the high school boys. We talk about authentic manhood. And then at 7:30, all the high school girls come in. We talk to them about choosing wisely who they date and eventually who they marry and who's going to be the father of their children. Dear God, thank you for these beautiful young ladies. And thank you for their future life. The man that's going to be their husband and the father of their children. Protect him, keep him safe. Make him into a great man as we try to make them into a great man.
Been able to say a whole lot of things, and there's been a lot of fruit. There's been a lot of mistakes. I've made about every mistake you can make as a man, husband, and father, but there's got to be that time. There's got to be that time where you draw a line in the sand of your life, and you say, that's it. I've got to grow up. I've got to lay aside childish things and move on and become the man I'm supposed to be.
How exciting to know that God has given you a design to create and cultivate. That's why you're here. That's at the heart of this lesson. That's the heart of every man. At the same time, in order to fulfill that purpose, you need power. That power comes from a relationship with Jesus Christ. He's the ultimate model of what manhood looks like. And to begin that journey, you have to have a relationship with Him. And our prayer is that you would find someone to talk to about this. Whether it's a friend, whether it's a small group leader, whether it's a pastor, whoever may be in your life, talk to someone and share with them your desire to move forward in a relationship with Jesus Christ. Again, it's been a great day. We hope you've enjoyed session 2. Next session, we will move further into the issue of a definition for what a man is. See you next session.
So you're not talking complex ethics here.
Yeah.
I think we're missing a few pages in the end because I found those pages in here.
Yeah, those right there don't have, not complete.
Yeah.
Those 2 right there. So the other ones are, the other 3. But that one's not.
We have the 24, 25, 26, but 27 and 28 was not in the list.
27 and 28 is missing.
Yeah, or at least from one of the ones I pulled up. So I
I have 28 and 27.
Oh, I didn't. Okay.
These here don't.
Cool. I grabbed those pages.
Okay. Where's the bathroom at?
If you go straight, right? Like if you go straight from here, you see it on the right.
Oh, okay.
Let me just, here you
On
go.
the right, huh?
Yeah.
You forgot.
Thank you.
Well, you picked that, you just didn't pick up the basket.
Really? Yeah. No, I didn't have all the answers. You have the last one.
The last one is, on 28.
Yeah.
It's truth and then model.
The model.
And you need the ones for 27 too?
No, 27 I got. I wrote down stuff on the 26th page, and that was the answer for 27.
How you know?
I was just writing down whatever they wrote down as yellow. They call it as yellow.
Out of here.
But I think I have, yeah. 27. So just, yeah, that's good. I already put it. Yeah.
Yeah, number 7, you put strength and power.
Oh, power split. Same thing. Okay.
That's what I was about to say. You know, when you go to school, it's different.
fail.
Did you get the first one? I didn't get the first couple answers.
Yeah, I did. I did.
I wasn't even paying attention. I was like, oh crap.
Yeah. So I know the first one. This one, man. That's the only one I know.
I don't know. I think if 6 is 8 would be fine, because I think the only one I know that really works till like late hours is Ricardo and Ellis.
Yeah.
But every other person, because Gene doesn't work after he work overnight.
Yeah.
I just talked to one of my friends. I'm gonna see if he want to come.
Yeah.
He gets off at 5.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's what I'm saying. So this right here might be good for us. And I mean, if you think about it, it's 2 hours. So the first hour we probably watch the video, and if people come in 7, they in time for us to like go over the sheet so they can kind of catch up.
And that's the thing is I don't want to cut it to like 1 hour because the video is almost. Like,
Yeah. So I mean, so I think it'd be fine right here, just doing it 6 to 8.
Yeah.
And if you're late, you just come late. And like you said, we have the sheet.
Yeah,
Well,
okay.
after the video, we go over everything we saw, so people will be able to catch up.
Yeah, I was actually supposed to bring, Zach, Sister Tammy's son.
Or the one that just had a birthday.
I think so.
Yeah.
It was like Brother Hank's son.
Yeah.
I was supposed to bring him, but I totally forgot. So I'm sure.
Which ones are y'all missing?
No, I just hadn't grabbed the last 2 pages. That was my mistake.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that was my mistake. I should have grabbed it because I actually was just sitting around. I should have just, because he wanted to come too.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. I just told him, I said, next time we have a class, I don't know. He said, get off at 5.
no, next time I'll bring Zach
So,
tomorrow.
I was trying to say, this would be a good place, because you get the 2 hours. Most likely the first video is gonna be an hour, and then we're gonna discuss everything that's all anyway, so if people come late, they'll be able to catch
I don't
up.
want to keep it too short either.
Because the beauty about the work exercise, you notice he said everything that's on the page.
Yeah.
And if you miss out, you just have to, catch up and then fill in with the class that's already an hour ahead of you.
Yeah.
Because, my book, I have the answers, so I can.
What is
Yeah,
the
but-
first answer? By the way, sorry. We
The
missed,
first 2.
yeah, the first 2. We missed the first 2.
Well.
Introduction.
Yeah, because I was gonna see if you guys were gonna be assertive,
Oh, we got also.
you get your papers yourself and everything, and, little exercise that they teach and everything, but, as he put it, as they put it, they were sitting around the round table, they're pretty much excited about how they teach this and the awareness that comes from this, where guys will kind of like wake up, you just say to yourself, at some point, I do feel like, or did feel that way, like this guy gave up a multi-million-dollar contract to do what was really in his heart. That's the thing that always bothered him, that if I had enough money, I would do this. He found out that it didn't take a lot of money, all the money he thought he needed to do that. And like the coach said, you gotta pick it, because if you're not gonna be married to football, golf, baseball, basketball, don't do it. Eric Jeter went into the end of his career to get married because he knew he couldn't go home to a wife when he spent 7, 8 months on road. You know what I'm saying? So that was his thing. Patrick Ewing deferred all his contract to the end of his basketball career because he was afraid of being broke. So he only gave himself a stipend for all those years. And because he's another thing John Thompson taught him too, women to take your money. Barry Bonds had, I think, in the 3 wives, John Paul Van Gundy had 7 wives. But in the 3 wives that he had lost something upward of around $60 million in those divorces. And that's not even talking about the alimony that these women wanted, because they said, this is the lifestyle that I led when I was married. I want to maintain that lifestyle. You know, and so he did have the money for that. So you look around, and then John Claude went back to like his fourth wife and remarried her again. So it was just crazy how these things, you know, these things happen, but we don't know. As men, we only see, excuse me, what we see. I mean, and there are things, there are realities that I know guys that spend that kind of time on video games. You know, they just spend a lot of time on video games. That's just one of the things they love to do. I know guys got some serious hobbies, like, you know, shooting, fishing, hiking, all those things. Those are things that they do religiously. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard for you to buckle down in a relationship and kind of like see what your purpose is in life, when the only thing you're doing is fulfilling whatever it is that you have an urge to do. So, you know, seeing these things and hearing these things, I think it's funny when I hear some things I've already said to people, you know, I'll laugh because I said, okay, other people are saying that too. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what you see. And when you see those things, you comment on those things, because I didn't have this. I didn't have this when I was young. I didn't have nobody take time with me to get me to see that there's a better way for me to think and there's a purpose for me. So, you know, when they was talking in the introduction, you know, want to bring clarity to our confusion about manhood, they want everyone that's watching this series to see that they're not joking around and they're not trying to misunderstand things. They're trying to get straight to the point. Straight to the point. And Genesis will take you back and start things in a more productive way. And even that is distorted by a lot of people. In the first, number one, it says in chapter 1 of Genesis, we see God's model through what? What y'all wrote down? Y'all missed them too?
I wrote man, but I don't know that's right.
Okay, let me give you the answer.
Only the first, everything else we have.
Creates and cultivates. Number through leadership, he creates and cultivates. So number one is leadership. And number two, oh, yeah, okay. So the only two that y'all missed?
Was the introduction and,
For the first one, the man would be able to discuss in the session one should be a start and a blank for us all.
Yeah, in creation, how do you see God creating and cultivating? In the first two chapters, before man actually got here, because Moses wrote 2 accounts of man. So how do you see God creating and cultivating in his creation on day one?
Which is very active and definitely not procrastinating, right? It's like
Okay.
every day there's an objective, and the
Okay.
objective is fulfilled.
Okay.
And what's supposed to be done is done.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh yeah, let's do it tomorrow kind of situation.
and he handled everything as if like someone who loves their job type thing, like, you know, he loved what he was doing. He made everything the way perfectly, the way he wanted it. You know, that might, I guess they say, yeah, just, and made it from his image, he made us the way he wanted the house, he liked what he was doing.
Everything is perfect, nothing is like, what's it called, like not fully in it, like, you know, how you have to do it, so you just like this guy that was complaining, like, not doing it fully, but only, oh yeah, that's good enough, let's something like that. And so,
When God created time, he kept everything restrained, and he didn't burden himself out. He kept, when he created, as you were alluding to, he put everything in that day, because that day settled it. And when he looked back at it, he examined his work and said, that's good. So he took pride in what he was doing. When he finished it, he looked back to make sure that everything that he put into it was just the way he wanted. He said, wow, that's good. That turned out for the best. So you know, it's great that we can go back. Y'all know I'm always in Genesis anyway, because I love going back to the beginning and see how God created and cultivated. All right, number 2, God intended man to be like who? Yeah, made in his image. So God actually created Adam to be like him and do the things that he did. So it's important that we see even today God don't want us to act outside of our plan and design. When we act outside our plan and design, we're outside the boundaries of our standard, which is God. Therefore, we get confused, we make multitudes of mistakes, and we can't fix things. Once things get out there, we can't fix them because it takes God to fix them. Adam didn't know how to dress himself because for the first time, Adam seen himself in darkness. So he went and grabbed a fig tree. He didn't snatch that off a tree. And God said that wasn't going to be good enough for your offspring because you're now exposed. So God had to kill an animal to put something right on them, because Adam probably was too scared to even do that. He everything about his knowledge evolves. He was the smartest man in the world. He became the dumbest man in the world because he simply living in darkness. He didn't know what to do anymore. And his relationship with God was severed. Therefore, his knowledge of God was severed too, because what he did was put him and God separate from one another. So he cannot act. It's just like an engineer at Ford. If that guy's been working there for 20 years and he go over to Chevy and work, and he's in that engineering room with the Chevrolet guys, there's a lot of things he's not going to understand. Although combustional engine is the same thing from one manufacturer to another. A Ford is not a Chevy, and a Chevy's not a Ford. And you're going to be sitting there trying to say, back over at Ford, we did it this way. And them guys said, this is not Ford, man. This is Chevy. This is General Motors. And this is the way we design our cars and our trucks over here. It may run the same. You may get the same performance out of it, but that's not the way we do things here. And that's what he was alluding to. Once we screw up, we have a tendency to say, I'm going to make it better by doing this. But when we make it better by doing that, that's not according to God's plan and design. Therefore, God doesn't understand. Now, we're good at that.
So whenever you're making mistakes, it takes more effort to admit you make mistakes and go back to God. I think it's easier to just criticize fig leaves or fruit, choose alternatives. It's like saying, oh yeah, I have issues with video gaming, then I'll just say, oh yeah, religion is not for me. I'll just rather choose this lifestyle than forget this whole thing. Instead of admitting that, okay, this is overtaking my life, and to get back in reality and get back into it.
That's me.
It'll be at 7 o'clock, everybody's calling.
Oh, everybody, okay. That's my little family. Come on, you was gonna say something?
No, it's basically how some people out of sight out of mind type thing. Like with that guy with the video game, if his wife never came, like you say, he didn't care anyway. If it was out of sight, it's not a problem. It don't matter because it's not gonna affect him with his video game. So it's like, by the way, he cared about her dinner.
She was better off going by herself, not saying anything, and coming home, and he probably been asleep.
Yeah, she would have been happy.
She would have been happy. It would never fought. And he would probably woke up the next morning and say, how was it last night? And she would have said it was fine. But she cared about him so much that she wanted him to have joy in her accomplishment.
You see, there's a lot of men to mindset because people choose that kind of lifestyle. They don't want to be in a relationship because they don't want anybody to have them even self-reflect their life. It's like I'm going to do things all day, and if I don't have a girlfriend, nobody's going to even ask me, because I'm living by myself. Like, nobody's going to check me out and say, hey, did you even go outside the door this morning? Nobody's going to do that.
That's right.
So that's even worse, not having anybody. So people choose to do that, so that's a scary thing.
Yeah, and it's just getting back to what God wants you to be when you get up in the morning to the time you go to sleep. He wants you to be active, in action, doing things that make sense. Everything outside of God comes with a consequence in your actions. So don't think it don't. No matter what it is, if it's outside of the way God created and cultivated, it's going to come with consequences. And those consequences you can't fix. Once someone is hurt, it's very hard for them to believe that you love them. I think it's a lie when you tell me again. So it comes with a consequence. Sometimes those consequences last us a lifetime. Sometimes people forget with space and distance and they heal. Sometimes people don't. They just reminded of that when they see you 5 years from now. Because that's the only thing they can remember, how bad you hurt them. So God is trying to get us to see that if we cultivate and we create relationships that's going to last, relationships like He created, we'd be better off.
I think one of the sermons that you mentioned was that once Adam dropped the ball as a man, Eve would not see him the same way. He already dropped the ball once. And sometimes you're not gonna get those second chances where it's very hard to live up to being the same. And if they see you as a kid, it's very difficult to regain that trust and, prove yourself a man again.
Yeah, I not imagine how it was after God kicked him out there. Everything, if you would have told me to put that with him, if you were in this situation now. You know what I mean? It's like for the rest of their life.
That's what he did. He did
You know,
blame her.
he blamed her, but then she, like you said, she could go, I didn't tell me, he told you. You should, I can see that. And that I can see that happening in a lot of relationships. Because, like, with me, for a good example, like video games, I can see myself out. I mean, I don't play it fully out, I don't be like that, but there's been times, I just, that's one thing, I go to my space and let my wife go in her space. And we always got to remember, like, we always got to be playing, like, okay, like 9 o'clock, we're going to stop what we're doing to go sit down, relax together, something like that. Because, we need our time, we got to make sure we get our time together because I don't want to be in that situation when, she's upset because I'm not taking her, like you said, taking her as serious as she wants to be taken.
Yeah. I mean, it's not asking for too much. I mean, just imagine what 24 hours was like for Adam and Eve after rebellion, after God kicked them out. Imagine what it was like 24 hours later. Because remember, Satan confronted them time and time again after. That's why he murdered his own son. Satan told Adam then, you live in my world. This is not your world. You live in my world now. I run things now. You ran things in the garden. We all got kicked out. But this is what my world looked like. So they had some reflection to do, and they had to live in fear then. See, because everything that he subdued and had charge over looked at him different then. But they seen him out of the eyes of Satan. Because the Bible says that the nature itself moaned and groaned. Everything about what God created a problem for Adam after that. When he went down to do something, he had to sweat to make that ground yield to him. He didn't have to do that before. Everything was God given above ground, giving him what he wanted. It was pleasing to the eye. Whatever fruit he desired, he just went and got. Now he had to create that. His cultivation and his creation was now hard. And every moment after that, he suffered in doing it because he remembered to himself 900 and something years, I messed up. And this is a hard life now. It was very different. And he didn't want to leave. God drove him out. God actually kicked him out. Because sorry was applicable, but it did not stop what they did. And that's the part that people kind of like get to, because some people don't like to apologize. It's not because they think they're wrong or don't want to be wrong. They know how painful it is to admit that they hurt somebody else. So that relationship was tough. The way they viewed Satan was very different too, because they had dominion over him before. They just didn't act like it. So every time he came around, things were different. God has given us a mandate to do what? Create and cultivate. God created men to be social and spiritual leaders. He looked at Adam and he says, not good that a man be alone. That's why your social part of you, you really need to cultivate. You really need to kind of like enjoy and, beef yourself up into being more and more social with people. Jesus spent a lot of time around people. And, you may think, man, this dude, got up 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning to pray. But every time he turned around, he was with people. Even if he wasn't with other public people, he still had 12 people around him all the time. Man, that's a lot of folks to be around you all the time. Even when you travel somewhere and go somewhere, imagine the homes that Jesus went in that fed him. They had to have a large home. 12 hungry men, you know what I'm saying? I mean, these dudes were work guys, you know what I'm saying? They come in, you give Jesus, you had to give them. There was only one case, I think, and maybe it's more, I didn't examine it wholeheartedly, sinner at Simon's house, where the Bible says nothing about the disciples.
Yeah,
He invited him there.
And you know what side is number, you could be your side.
Yeah. I mean, fishermen dudes are not small dudes. You dudes got some big hands, some rough hands, and big shoulders, because they be netting all day long. You know what I'm saying? So you kind of figure most of these guys, maybe Matthew, the tax collector, was a little smooth dude, you know, fingernail kind of guy. You know what I'm saying? But the rest of those guys, man, had to be some tough guys. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you hungry, you hungry. And I mean, you walking around here. You know, I think I would have got some of that 5,000 feet into that buffet at that 4,000 too. Wait a minute. Yeah, you know, when men don't lead, what happens? Chaos follows. It's just the way it is. If we don't do what we're supposed to do, things are going to happen right before our very eyes. And, you know, these are truths. The disorder of confusion that occurs in the home, these are truths. And like I said, I will always say, I'm not talking about single parenting, but God has planned and designed us to have a father and a mom. So when that is taken out of that, you leave the role playing on that individual that is left. Women can burden that better than men. When a man is left with 3, 4 kids to raise, those kids generally grow apart because men don't cultivate love in the way a woman does. You know, they gotta go out when he get home, he's tired, he come home, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. Women can bear those kinds of burdens. But generally speaking, and they got statistics that will prove this, you will see certain aspects of that kid growing up to be problematic. And it's just the way things are. And 1, 2 incomes is better than 1. And that's that 1 income matches 2. And you may be a single parent that works a full-time job and a part-time job, just to make ends meet. And when things don't work right, and you look around, you in that level of poverty where, you know, you're $20,000, $14,000 a year, that is absolutely no money. Because you didn't leave yourself time enough to do anything else. I mean, girls who have to drop out of school when they get pregnant, I mean, we know, you know, girls that get pregnant 7th and 8th grade. When I was teaching over at Curiel School, man, it's most of the time, man, I had to go around the corner, so I'm shaking my head. And I know that these children are deprived in their education before they even get to high school. And I think summer school now you pay for it, don't you? Because back in the day when I was going to school, summer school was free. I think you have to pay now to go to summer school. So if you mess your life up during the year, you get in any kind of trouble during the year, it's going to cost you now for public education. You know, so you know it's clear that, you know, masculinity is not about just being. Yeah, it's about having the courage just to do it. You know, and you gotta understand that. I mean, you gotta know that what your role is, you must live and abide in your role. And sometimes it's tough.
Yeah, I was saying, like I was telling you about that documentary earlier. It's exactly what you're saying, is what they were saying, because it was like when, I think it was Clinton made the 2 strikes, a lot of the men that were going to jail for like, you know, misdemeanors and stuff, but it was the 3rd strike, they did from 50 years ago, they in the home. So now there's a whole bunch of men, fathers not there for their kids. And they say that's where the crime started going higher, because you got a whole bunch of kids that's raising themselves now. They don't have no father figure to show them how to do things. They're just trying to make it their own, making it worse.
Just remember on that documentary, and it's true, I mean, Lord knows it's true, Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man, was driving around with a trunk full of cocaine. He was passing school zone after school zone after school zone. He gets stopped by the police, and what do? They put him in a clinic. They put him in a rehab center. You get guys that have an ounce of cocaine or crack. He's a person of color. He spends 20 years in jail. You know what I'm saying? They get every rule that they can find to put that dude with 6 ounces of crack in jail for 15 years. This dude's doing an 8-year stretch. And you got people like this guy's rich now. He's making movie after movie after movie. And the only thing they kept doing to him was putting him in a rehab center. You know what I'm saying? Look at the disparity in that. Look at the injustice in that. And then when you look at the documentary and see that it is proven, it's a proven fact, that the same police will stop people of color and won't stop white people. The same policemen. You know, when you go into a store, the same security people will start watching you while other people steal. And my wife gotta get on me all the time. I said, look at them steal. She said, how do you know that? I said, come here. Watch they open the bag. Open the bag and they'll take the underwear out the bag. They're gonna put it right in because they know what its sensors are. And now some of the garments now have the sensor in the band. Like when you get home or 2 or 3 washes, you look at your shirt, you see this tab in your shirt or in your underclothing and stuff. Those are sensors because they watch people. I watch a lady open a bag of cookies in the first aisle and give them to the child in the stroller. And the child was walking in and take the empty, because it's empty by the time they get the dairy. She throw it away. Didn't even pay for the cookies. You know what I'm saying? I watch people all the time. I watch elderly people steal. Yeah, get some grapes, get stuff like that. They eat it by the time they get to the meat department. It's gone. They didn't pay for that. You know what I'm saying? So it's crazy. It's really crazy how, mommy, I'm hungry. Some people take some women who don't have money, take their children to the grocery store just for them to eat. Because by the time they get through knocking them cookies down and hitting them grapes and everything, it's a done deal. It's a done deal, but people get very, 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 smart about how to do things. Misunderstanding God's design, Adam failed. I mean, that's just all you can say about it. He failed. There are 2 typical misses when it comes to experiencing God's best for our life. The way of the fruit. Adam and Eve chose their own way over God's will. It was clearly laid out for them. Matter of fact, everything about God that he told Adam and Adam told Eve supported their environment and everything around them. It was just everything they needed was there. So only thing that, just like I said in the sermon on Sunday, that professor said, everybody in here has 100. The only thing you got to do is maintain it. I thought that was a good idea. It's the first time a teacher has ever said something to me. So I'm already passing in your class. And I was the only one who made comments. A couple of the students said to me, man, you thought he was lying. No, I said, man, I never had a teacher say that. I said, but I bet y'all asked some questions y'all wanted to ask. That guy said, yes. Now maintain it. It is your job to maintain that. So, it's just crazy. I mean, but Adam, he chose his own way. Eve followed. The way of the what? And God what? Care for them, despite their sin. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful story right after sin, after rebellion. God just loved them deeply. And it was like, Tom, Adam, man, you didn't listen to me. Now look at you. You can't even support the bone of your bone and flesh of your flesh. He just didn't have it anymore. He didn't know what to do. And now God had to be burdened down with trying to help Adam and Eve, because even that put God in a very different position. God gave him all the wisdom that he needed, all the knowledge he needed to be everything that he wanted to be, and to be just like God. Now God had to start all over again. And it's just crazy. It's crazy. God's made provision for us through his son. Same thing. The cross was to bridge us back. I love them that much that I'm going to do this. Jesus not only models and inspiring masculinity, he also enables us to live it ourselves. Here, it's going to be better, and it's going to be much better if I leave, because the Comforter is going to come. But he wanted us to live a very simple and loving life. Jesus, like Adam and Eve, we are all for them. Yeah. It's just all that we need to identify. But like I said, we don't, in the sermon, we don't look at ourselves that way. People don't. People just don't view themselves as sinners, because it's not an everyday word that we use. You know, a lot of the gross things like rape has been changed to sexual assault. You know, a lot of things like stealing has been changed to embezzlement. You know what I'm saying? We have toned down the harshness of wrong. And we're starting, Satan is very smart on how you do things. We're starting to make things forgivable before they are. And then we put history behind those things. Well, he has had a history of violence. You know, when you go to the courtroom, you hear that, oh, well, he's been in the system since he was 13. And because of that, he is hard, he's this, he's that. So people start making us, you know, when they look at you and the judge have to look at you and analyze you, they start, you know, saying, it's not that bad. Not that, but everything you're doing is wrong. You know, so they make excuses for you. And you just go along with the program. When we first started doing the DCF classes, it took Don a long time to get me to say yes. I said, okay. So you didn't go through this long, drawn out classes once, twice a week. Yeah. And I heard this, she showed us this film, and this doctor said afterwards, it has been clinically proven that from the womb to the toddler's age, if a child is not told and showed love, you can't teach it to them when they get 6, 7, 8 years old. Because the learning years are in the womb and right after the womb, the toddler years are the learning years. So if mom and dad don't nurture you with love, tell you that you love, kiss you under the cheek, give you things, stimulate everything about you, you won't learn how to. So when you get 6, 7 years old, when it's time for you to go to school, you're going to be one of the kids that say, that's mine. Because you've never been taught how to share, you've never been taught how to be still, you never had a structured life, you never had breakfast in the morning, lunch at noon, dinner at 6. You know, so you never had those things. You never had to clean up your toys, put it back in the toy box, and got ready for something else. So everything you see, when it stimulates you, you say, it's mine. And I sat there and I shook my head. I said, dog, man, you know how many people I know it's like that? And so I'm sitting there and I'm nudging down and saying something to them. So they say, Ellis, what's wrong? I said, you know how many people I know that do this? He said, yeah. Yeah. So if you never taught it, you never learn it. And if you never learn it, it becomes part of your behavior. And you look different around people who have. That's why we have a society, a majority of our people in our society that are incarcerated. Because to them, it wasn't that bad. I took it because I wanted it. I broke into the car because I seen a wallet sitting there. He should have never left it. I took the grocery, remember that little cops program they used to come out where it was a dummy car, they would set people up, or it was a dummy trailer, they would set people up. Well, they didn't think they were setting people up, or they would leave a bicycle. And, you know, just the urge of knowing, the first thing the criminal did was look around like this. Just that urge of grabbing something that didn't belong to you. And then they got in the car and drove it, and then they killed and switched it, and they couldn't go no further. But the keys were in the car. They should have never left the keys in the car. And they lie as soon as they get pulled over. But it's the urge of doing what you think is right and not wrong. I mean, so, you know, it's crazy. It was crazy. Only by placing our trust in Jesus can we have salvation, as well as the power that fuels the authentic man who we're talking about. The same misses of Adam and Eve, the fruit of the fig tree, can show up in the misses of today's conventional manhood. Men who choose the way of the fruit become childish consumers. When I first got married, I transferred that childish behavior over into my marriage. I used to buy things for my Mustang. Anything that came out, any kind of new music, stereo system and stuff came out, I had to have it. And it was always clean. I always, when it got different kinds of solutions to make it this and make it that. I was married and I was still doing that. You know what I'm saying? I had to do certain things on Friday night, Saturday night. had to drive the car around certain places, because that's what I always did. And that wasn't my wife, my family, as a family wasn't priority. It still was what I wanted to do. And I was, one of those kind of guys, man, who was just silly as a consumer. I stimulated myself with things that I thought was very nice, and I was do those things. So, it wasn't until like 3 years that Donna told me, are you married? She said to me, "Are you asked me, are you married?" Of course I am. So you don't have one. I said, in what way? They started naming these things and everything, and I had no rebuttal. Because for the first time, I was able to see myself for myself, although I didn't think those things were bad. And they didn't compromise the marriage in a sense, but it was abnormal to the marriage. And it wasn't until she wrote that list down, and it took me like 24, 36 hours to really think about what she said. And when I came back, she said the light went out, huh? I said, are you serious? And so I was trying to find a list, to give her. It was so funny. He said, what are you doing? I said, nothing, I'm just trying to find some stuff out. It was so silly, David.
Yeah, this is one aspect that I always find struggling, like that transitioning from a child to a man. And one big aspect is prioritizing in the sense that it's beyond your physical self. Like you said, there's nothing wrong with what you're doing, because that's just how you've been doing it forever. Because you are taking care of yourself. But when you're in a relationship with somebody else, especially if you're together, it's not the same. Yeah, when I started the gaming thing, I don't see gaming as a problem. I see the problem being that gaming is priority over anything else. Because there are some things that you just like as men that might not like, the other partner might not enjoy. And it's not that activity is wrong, but it's the fact that you're choosing that over anything else.
It's time consuming.
And that's the scary part, is like, I've never been in that situation where I'm not thinking about not myself, because that's just my instinct. I've just been grown up to think, hey, what does that feel to me? I'm not thinking, hey, let me put myself and my wife or my girlfriend or somebody else's perspective and think, hey, is that right on her? That's a different kind of thinking to me. And I think that would be one of those challenges that I just see. That's one of those things that I benefit with individuals that are in higher steps, that I can get some perspective, like how does that feel? To have that kind of mindset.
Yeah, like with me, I always like I had this conversation with Karen actually, because I guess we got in Crystal getting married, like all that different. And I told her, I said, when it came to me, I said, I already knew what kind of person I was if I chose to move out at days and move. Because I told her, I said, at 25 years old, I took it upon myself, and I told my parents, I said, I gotta go. I said, I can't be, I told them, remember it a long time ago, I said, by 25, I gotta be moved out. I said, my steps are to make sure I have me a job, and then a house, and then a car. And then the girl and everything follows after that. And I say, because if I stay here longer than leaving at 25, I know I'm just gonna stay here and not wanna move. I'm just gonna not progress. And, I'm just gonna live under you guys, and you guys gonna take care of me. I said, in order for me to actually, because most females now, that they, like most females, they won't even talk to you unless you got your own place. You know what I mean? Like, even with my wife, she was like, yeah, that's, that was one of the pros that we had when we first met, that you already had some kind of structure in what you want to do, and how you try and get somewhere. And like, even when it came to like the video game things, like, I play video games all the time. I mean, at this time, I still play my basketball game, you know what I mean? But even when it came to me, like, living alone, I played the games, and then I know I have to go to work because I have to pay rent. So, so instead of me playing 4 hours every night, I have to cut this down for 2 hours because I have to get up early in the morning because I got to go to work. And then when I get back home, I might be too tired to play anything, so then it's cut down for an hour. And so that everything started, once I got out, everything started falling into place, that it went from me playing every day till I just, whenever, maybe on a weekend or Saturday when I'm not doing anything, I'll play for, a couple minutes, an hour, so because I'm not doing anything, it's Saturday, I'm off, whatever. And that right there, you become more
for like, you know what I mean, more well-rounded, and then also ready for, my wife, like I told her, like, she always tell us, I said, the difference between me and a lot of other people that I did all my childish, like going out, playing video games, most of the day. I told us to this day, I probably maybe will go out once or twice, but then when I go out, I'm bored. You know, so I go back home. You know what I mean? But I did all that from like 21 to like 28, 20. I did all that stuff now. So all that stuff now is like the only time, if we do go out dancing, anything like, the only time I will want to do that is when I'm with you. I said, because there's no other reason for me to go out. I'd rather be home. I said, you know, but I said, I got over that stuff before we married. So I said, so you kind of lucky because I did all that already. So now you don't have to, like, you can call my phone today. I said, you don't have to, I told her, I said, it's so bad. And she is funny because she knows too that it's so bad that she knows 80%, 90% of the time she knows where I'm at. Either I'm at home or I'm at the movies. I said, I don't go anywhere. She said, you don't go anywhere else. You know what I'm saying? I thought, I said, that's easy because I did been there, done that. That's how I look at everything now.
And you know, to David's point, you know, this is what I do. This is who I am. Now, to analyze what I'm doing is to have a relationship with me. Then in a relationship with me, then is where I'm going to start looking at the things that I do as the things that I do now, or the selfish, self-centered things that I'm going to continue to do because I'm in a relationship now. And see, that'll help you grow. That'll help you grow up, because honesty is always the best policy. You don't nitpick at people. You don't tease people. They are who they are, and you are who you are. If there are some things in your life that are very important.
Just a heads up, we'll be closing shortly in about 15 minutes on the floor.
You know, when you show people the real you, some people are afraid to do that. When you show people the real you, you stand on your principles. This is where I'm now. I am willing in this relationship on Friday night to give you my undivided attention if that's what you need. But I do have an outlet. And you have to understand that I am who I am. And for the first time, we're coming together. And I have to find out who you are. You have to find out who I am. And it's important that you don't lose yourself for a reason that is not necessary. A lot of single people lose themselves thinking that they have to act married because they're dating. That's dangerous because you're not married. You know what I'm saying? You're just dating. And, you know, if your dating is now becoming serious where you and her are mutually agreeing to not seeing anybody else, having a future with one another, now your relationship has become marital. Now you gotta let one another know your pros and cons, your likes and dislikes, your ills and your achievements, your fears, because now you move in a relationship into a place where it's going to be Adam and Eve-ish. You see what I'm saying? Dating, people get in trouble with that. And I see it and I say it all the time. I just was a knucklehead when I was dating because I had no other way to be because I wasn't getting married. You see what I'm saying? Therefore, it didn't bother me. You know what I'm saying? So when you think about it, and I look at young people and I see how they date with a seriousness. And I'm saying, where is that going? Are you just hanging out? Are you just good friends? Are you just socially compatible where you like the same thing, like doing the same thing? Well, that's not dating. That's being with one another. You know what I'm saying? So don't put marriage on the word dating. Don't put it there because it doesn't belong there. You are with one another. Now is a time for you to have the freedom of partnership, to understand and know that she can go over here, you can go over there, and understand that you have to tone down the 4 hours to 2 hours. But that's still not marriage. You see what I'm saying? That's still not marriage. Maybe when you drop off, you want to get your 2 hours back. You know what I'm saying? That's still not marriage. So, you know, folks have to be careful, you know, when and how they apply certain things. And, you know, I just think, and y'all hear me say things about dating all the time, when it gets to that point, that's when you need to start making some self-decisions of, am I ready for this? Can I provide for this? Is this what I want to do the rest of my life? And as some guys, it's early 20s, some guys hit it in their 30s. Some guys, just one day they wake up and there's that window. And they say, wow, this is the one I want to spend the rest of my life with. You know what I'm saying? Waiting that long ain't wrong. My brother got married when he was 40 years old. You see, so it just didn't hit him. You know, I got married at 23. It didn't hit my brother until he was 40 years old. You know, so I'm saying, and I will continue to say, when you're dating, don't make your dating marriage, you know, because this person is now getting to the point where they want to know where you are, what you're doing, why you didn't call me. Don't give all of you like that. You know what I'm saying? You gotta say, wait, unless that's the girl. If that's the girl, then that's the girl. I mean, if you don't want to be with nobody else, then that's fine. But if you're willing in dating to lose you, be very careful when it's lost. You have nobody to blame but yourself. And men can't get back what they lose with women. You can't recapture that, because once she has it, you're done, because you have totally exposed yourself. She already know what you like and what you don't like. She already know the colors that you like and you don't like. You can't change up then. So be very careful in dating. This is good.
It's like one page left.
One page left. Okay, men who choose the way of the fruit become what?
Childish.
Okay, they become totally obsessed with what? Men who choose the way of fig leaves become what? There you go, that's us. They take pride in what they what? Don't do. Always looking at somebody else. They would rather criticize than create. And a lot of guys do that. When you're in a circle with your friends, the one with the biggest mouth, the one that loves the center of attraction, is the one who is the weakest. He's the one with the most insecurities, because he always got to talk. And when he talks, he's criticizing somebody else. He can always do it better. He can do more push-ups. He can tell more jokes. He can run an extra mile more. He's always in that circle. She's always in that circle, always talking about what they do, and they name tag you on what you can't do based on their accomplishments and what they can do. We all have friends like that, you know? So, you know, they take pride in what they do. Rather criticize others. How should we respond to God's mandate for us to create and cultivate? Trust Jesus for our salvation and look at him as our model for authentic manhood. Embrace the mandate today. Have courage to live it out at work according to how God has wired you. Be creative with your wife. Cultivate relationships by giving her something to anticipate. Be a what? Model. Gotta be a model for your kids. They're gonna spend more time with you than anybody else on the planet. So just know that. That's who they see all the time. And I can always look at children like the therapist said, I can see what the parents are like. They're just like you. And like my brother said to my dad and my mother when they was upset when he came out of the corner, he was smoking a cigarette. He said, but you all smoke. How can you tell me not to smoke? You all smoke. So how you guys create and cultivate, we'll give it 5 minutes in different ways, in different roles in your life. David, you're gonna take the friend column. And Kumar, you're gonna take the husband column. You ain't a dad yet. Right? That may be a conversation tonight, right?
It's something he ain't I say I try to be mindful for our time that we should spend together. You know, like try to minimize my alone man time and try to maximize my together with my wife time. So she can get her wants and needs and you know, so like with me, I'd rather be with her more to the point that she's like, just go find something else to do. You know? Okay. Because then that means, you know, she's not complaining about me not spending enough time with that. You know?
Thinking about like prioritizing things that are more important, and then giving other things that are putting things in perspective. But what is most important? Do that first. Like when you get up, plan your day so that priorities are laid out. So that you know other things are behind.
All right, 2, 3, and 4 will be our reflection questions as our homework for next time. And then hopefully we're able to get here now. This to be our spot. Okay, all right, on Tuesdays, send something out to the group and just ask them, you know, what would be the best time. But this is gonna be 6 to 8, so we can pull quarter to 8, we'll cut it off there. But they can try to get here at 7.
You know, about to say, because even like we said before, like the movie itself is about maybe 45 minutes. So all we doing is reviewing what we saw, so they really won't miss anything if they complete.
I'll write these 4 questions up and I'll send it to them, with kind of like an overview of what we've done. How did they get catch up? Yeah, I thought that would be nice. I thought that would be nice.
Start this lunch treatment.
All right, let's break it down.